Good morning. It's Tony Datino, and I am back in New York for the next 12 days, as the love of my life is going through some medical treatments that are going to help her live a nice, long, happy life. But as some of you may know, I don't usually talk about this. I've had this terrible fear of flying for a good number of years as a result of several near crash accidents that was topped off by 9/11 2001. So it's been a challenge for me to think about getting back on a plane from our emotional brain. One of the stresses, right? We talk about our emotional brain, fight or flight, and whether or not we're going to stand and fight or we're going to just flee. Well, in this case, I've decided to flee, and fortunately, I'm able to get an Amtrak train that goes from Florida to New York. So I'm here in New York for the next couple of weeks and be going back to Florida in time for the 24th USA Memory Championship. But what I want to talk about in my Live with Tony today is the importance of getting away. So when I get on an Amtrak train, first of all, I get my own little sleeper car, which is great. I get my own little compartment, and I can sit there and close the door, and a attendant comes in and asks me if I want to eat in my room or eat in the dining car. And this trip, I decided to eat in my room. I needed to be to myself. I have a lot of things that are going on. Sometimes in stress. And what I did is I sat in my car, and a couple of movies that I play on my DV recorder. I had some crossword puzzles. I do Sudoku, 12 by 12. And my point is I sat there for the day, and it takes 21 hours to get from Florida to New York by Amtrak and the stops. And so the first stress I had was, God, is the train going to run? Now, stressing, right? I'm living in Florida, right? What have you watched over the last few days in Florida? Hurricane, and it's coming. Well, where's it going to go? Well, eventually it's decided it was going to go to the west coast in what they call the Bend, Tallahassee area of Florida. But it then was going to cut across and go to Jacksonville and Georgia, South and North Carolinas. Well, guess which way Amtrak goes. So my first stress was, okay, watching this train schedule and watching the pattern of the projections for the hurricanes, I said, oh my goodness, I am scheduled to go out on Tuesday, and I'm not sure if the trains are going to run on Tuesday, or at least start in Orlando and go north, based on the projection of the hurricane then cutting across into Jacksonville, which is right. So we got the X right there. And so fortunately, I was able to get a train on Monday. And as a result, the Monday trains went through, no hurricane in sight. But lo and behold, as I check at one of the stations, they canceled trains on the East Coast Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sundays were sold out. Like, stress. It was a relief, but I stressed over it, and then I stopped to think about it and say, so let's suppose that I didn't get the train on Monday and I went on Tuesday. Well, let's suppose, what would have happened? Well, I wanted to get up to New York because the love of my life was going to begin some medical treatment, and I wanted to be here with her. And so I stressed over that for a number of days, and even as I was on the day of travel, I'm listening to the reports and thinking about what precautions do I not need to take in the house. And I forgot to move some chairs that were outside and move them into the garage. So I fortunately have some great neighbors. But it was stress after stress after stress. That the point when I finally got onto the train and the attendant came, I said, "Look, I'm good to eat my meals here in my sleeper." The phone rings. Okay, here's what's going on. We got this hurricane coming. Is there anything I can do for you? And so, boom. Another call comes in on one of the business things I was dealing with. Okay, this didn't work. This has got to get done. This has got to get fixed. And you need to call two people after that call. Then I find out that Michael, who was pulling some of these things together, has got COVID, and he was running a temperature. Stress, stress, and stress. I mean, if you go to the news, you go talk to people that you care about, life sometimes has got lots and lots of stress. But here's what we've got to learn to do as we come up with this stress is we've got to step back and say, okay, what are we making all of this mean? And in the event that my train was even canceled on Monday and I couldn't go anywhere until then, we would have figured out ways to handle it. I mean, were they life and or death decisions? Were they life and or death uh, things that were going on? And in fact, it was more life and death if you're going to try to get through a hurricane with the waves and the storm and the way the path of the train was, bam, go right across the X. So was it worse to stress over this and think, oh my God, I've got to go? Like, well, maybe I'll get in the car and start driving. I mean, what we can do sometimes is a little bit crazy in terms of what our thoughts were. So as I go about this, right, and then I'm talking with different people, I'm trying to keep myself in balance. So I feel my body that was in a state of constant tension, right? Because what we know about stress is it spikes our cortisol, and the longer you keep your body in the spike of cortisol, the more damage it does, the more poison it basically puts into your body. And so it's not a good thing. And I intellectually know that. But when you're confronted with these, I call them surprises, and as I said once to somebody recently, God, can it get any worse? And they say, no, 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 do not say that. Don't put that out into the atmosphere because it can, and it always has that possibility. So it was an interesting ride, and what it occurs to me is as I get into this little compartment on a train, and the train goes by, I can kind of get away from the world for the most part, except we have cell phones and we have computers, and they have wonderful Wi-Fi on the train, and I can get emails. And on one level, it's like, God, do I want to just lock up my cell phone and shut the computer off and leave it in my luggage? Except I needed to watch a couple of the movies, which I thoroughly enjoyed, at least for a few hours. My point that I want to make to people is what we've learned in our work on mental fitness is that stress is not always a good thing. There are times when stress can give you that spike of energy that you need to deal with a situation that's in an immediate state of need. But there are times when that stress just keeps coming, it keeps coming, it keeps coming, and it then creates an overload. And then the body just begins to say, this is not good to stay in this state of tension, this state of pulling everything together and tightening up your muscles. I can feel it, in my head and my neck. My God, and my jaw is one of my spots, and I wonder where I get my TMJ from. And so if there's things that we can step back and think about, in my case, then I finally took myself to a couple of streams that I've been in. I've actually videoed them, and I sat and put the stream on and say, okay, I'm going to listen to the water running over the rocks. I'm going to watch it. Maybe there's a duck in the middle. And I brought myself into a calming situation where I could at least bring myself down to a level of thinking smartly in terms of, okay, what needs to get done? How do we get to take care of Michael? What do we get to take care of Evelyn? What do I need to do to take care of my own issues and things? How do I keep the mental fitness programs going? And so I was able to at least start to go through a series of actions and steps in my mind of resilience, and how can I at least bring my mind back into a state of peace so I can think logically in terms of what I need to do and what needs to be done that's going to move the ball as opposed to just freezing on it and being stuck. If any of you have ever got to the point where you need some coaching or help, boy, and being the expert from real life experience in how I navigate myself through them, and when do I hit the wall sometimes, and how do I bounce off of that. I'd be delighted. Send me an email at adottino@aol.com. adottino@aol.com. I'd be delighted to engage in anything I could do to help as I go reflect, especially on the last couple of weeks of my own personal life and how I'm navigating through the maze of stress and coming through with what I call constructive, positive solutions to them. All right, we are at Wednesday, and I am blessed to have a support team around me of people who jumped in the various spots this week and have just made a world of difference, and last night as well. So it's real time, and it's important as we talk about social connections to have that handful of people around you that you can rely on, that you can then reciprocate in their time of when they need help and need. So have a good one, and we'll see you back. And boy, if you're on the southeast coast, please don't get silly and go watch the waves come pouring over the coastline. Be smart, be safe. I want you to listen, be able to hear my next broadcast on Friday afternoon. You have a good one.